Is up, everybody? Mr. Purtis here. Welcome to 6.4. I'm hiding out in the LGI because I can't find anywhere else to record this video. So there's a little bit of an echo, but welcome to 6.4. We're doing Chinese Communist Revolution. So while all this stuff is going on with the Cold War as it's getting going, and we have the space race and the arms race and the proxy wars, China goes through a revolution and it's going to lead to them becoming communist. So let's hop into this. As always, historical circumstance. I will say this again for the millionth time. Historical circumstance, you're going to see it on the Regents exam. It refers to what happened right before whatever the situation is in the document that led to this happening. And in this case, our historical circumstances, China, is they were not industrialized. So if you remember when all these countries around the world were trying to industrialize, going through factories and new technologies, China does not. So their weapons, their military is very weak, which leads to them as an easy target to be invaded. And they're imperialized by the Europeans. And then Japan comes in right before World War II and starts taking over parts of China. One example, if you remember, we talked about this, is the rape of Nanjing or the rape of Nanking, when the Japanese come into China and really do some horrifically awful human rights abuses to women in China, as well as killing a lot of the men. So there's a lot of heavy losses from World War II. Now, World War II ends, and this is a theme going on here. After World War II ends, the losers, Italy, Germany, and Japan, all the stuff that they've taken over in the process of World War II is lost. And in this case, Japan had taken over parts of China and they lose it. So there's kind of this power vacuum of like, what do we do with China now and what happens? And there's two groups that emerge and leading to this civil war that lasts over 5 years. And on one side is a democratic leader, which you can imagine the United States is going to support him. His name is Zheng Jieshi or Chiang Kai-shek. I like to call him Double J. So he's democratic leader. He's also nationalist, wants to unify China, promote Chinese historical stuff and become pride in your country again, flags, all that stuff. And on the other side is this communist leader. His name is Mao Zedong. He is a peasant from a poor area of the outskirts in a rural area of China. And he says, you know what, we've tried these democratic things and all this stuff. Like it's been tried before. Let's try and industrialize and figure out how we can modernize our country. And he is a communist leader. So these two sides face off. A lot of people die in this civil war. As you can imagine, most civil wars, these two sides, it's going to be very bloody, but the communists are going to win the war. And they take control of mainland China, which is a huge, huge area and a huge country. And all these guys led by Double J, Zheng Jieshi, Chiang Kai-shek, they are going to kick them out of China to this little tiny island right here, which is now called Taiwan. And these two areas today, just as like a side note to this, and this is our enduring issues and kind of current event stuff that we're going to get into, these two areas do not like each other today. This is a democratic island made up of people who fled China to set up this new government back in the 1940s, 1950s. And China thinks and believes that this government and region should be there. So it's a major source of tension today. The U.S., along with Ukraine and a couple other places in the world, South Korea, we really support Taiwan today and provide them with a lot of money and financial aid. China does not call this place Taiwan. They call this area Chinese Taipei, and to call it Taiwan in China is a major insult to the Chinese government. So if you ever go to China, don't call it Taiwan. So Mao wins. All right. So we got Mao right here. We have the Democratic Nationalists here, and Mao looks at what's going on in the world and says, I need a blueprint. I need something to follow to help us industrialize and to modernize this country. And he looks, so here's China, right? And up here to the north is Russia. So Russia goes all the way, if you keep going this way, this way, this way. So he looks to Russia and he says, hey, Russia, you guys were unindustrialized. You had a communist revolution. Stalin took over. You guys successfully industrialized, became a world power. You're on the global stage right now. It's you and the US at this point. Like, you guys are the two players. I should use your idea. So he is going to follow Joseph Stalin from the Soviet Union's blueprint to a T. One, he becomes a totalitarian and he bans religion, eliminates anyone who's against him. He eliminates, arrests, jails, sends to camps, kills them, horrifically awful stuff. A lot of propaganda. So you got the propaganda posters here. Here's Mao coming out of the sun like, what's up? You have Mao here looking godlike. And by banning religion, I mentioned this with Stalin, it's common in totalitarian. Same thing with North Korea and Kim Jong-un. If you get rid of religion, people now have someone else or something else to look up to, and it becomes the leader of the country that people worship like a god. So Mao is worshipped like a god. Stalin is worshipped like a god. Kim Jong-un is worshipped like a god. But not everything is horrible, I guess. He does increase women's rights. So foot binding, I don't know if you learned about that last year, when women would try and make their foot as small as possible and you bend the toes underneath and break it and wrap it and wrap it. He bans that. He says, that is misogynistic and horrible and awful and unequal. So we're going to ban that. He gives women the right to choose their own husband. Up to this point in the 1940s, women were in arranged marriages in China based on who their parents chose and how much the family that the kid was marrying would give to the other family. Women could buy and sell property. There was equality in education and jobs. Women were promoted where it was promoted to get an education as a female. It was promoted to get a job, that you didn't have to stay in the home. And that's kind of a lot of the stuff that he talks about and gets a lot of support as a result of it. Also, and again, this is identical to Stalin. They're going to try and industrialize. So we got the social stuff here. He's a political totalitarian leader. We have some social stuff that's positive. And then we have, what are you going to do economically? How do you industrialize? So he has two plans. And this, again, I can't say it. I'm going to keep saying it. Very similar to Stalin. One is called the Great Leap Forward. It's a joke because it's really a great leap backwards, but he tries to do what Stalin does. He creates what's called a 5-year plan. He sets targets and goals. You need to do this and you need to do that. And he tries to industrialize and build factories and put money into building these factories. He asks Russia, can you help us build factories? And Russia sends money in because they see an ally with this new communist country. So they put money into building factories and to mining minerals, oil, gas, steel, all this stuff, focus on these things. But it turns out to be a total bust. They don't get industrialized like Russia. And there's a whole bunch of reasons that you don't need to know about, but it just doesn't work. They are not on the same level as all these other industrialized countries. People are upset at the working conditions. It's just not, it doesn't work. So this Great Leap Forward, which is trying to industrialize China, really brings them backwards. It doesn't work. The other thing he tries to do is what's called collectivization. We talked about this with Stalin as well. Instead of giving, now he came into this, Mao did, saying, hey, peasants, hey, all you farmers, you've been poor your whole life, generations of poorness. I'm going to give you your own land. You're going to get land. So all these peasants are like, yay, Mao gets us. He's a peasant too, or he was. He totally understands us. And as soon as he takes over and he tries to feed this group of people who are working these factories, you got to feed all these people. You got to hope people move to the cities to work in these factories. So he is going to have the farmers, instead of being on their own land like he promised them, they're all going to work together. So instead of 100 little farms, we're going to make one big farm where everyone works together. It's like a big freaking huge group project where you're now working with 200 families or 200 people. It's like taking the entire sophomore class at West Hampton Beach and saying, you guys are all going to work together to complete this. And what happens is exactly what you expect. One, people are upset because they want to do it by themselves. Number two, people are upset because they don't like the person that they're working with. They don't like the family that they're now working with, or they don't like that the person they're working with isn't working as hard as them, because what incentive do I have to work hard when there's 199 other families to do this? So each of these areas, they're going to work on these communes. There's 5,000 other families. You're going to have your own school, your own protection, medical care. So you're supposed to work together. And this is what communism is supposed to be. We all work together for the common good. But people don't like it. They don't want to work with other people. They want to be on their own. They have self-interest and self-motivation and worried about their family. And it doesn't produce enough food. So this is going to lead to starvation because you're not producing enough food. And it's going to make these workers who are working in the factories upset because they don't have enough food. And it's going to raise the price of food. And it's going to cause a whole lot of death and destruction. There's a famous quote from Mao here: when there is not enough to eat, people starve to death. It is better to let half of the people die so that the other half can eat their fill. Pretty heartless and cruel. In terms of Mao's legacy and what we know about Mao and what we think about it, this is the comparative kind of like death toll of what happens as a result. So we talk about how bad Stalin is, how bad Hitler is in the Holocaust. You can see the death tolls here. This is the low estimate. This is the high estimate. So under Stalin's rule in Russia and the Soviet Union, anywhere from like 30 to 50 million people died. It's a ton of people. In Stalin or in Mao's communist revolution in China, we have anywhere between 30 to 45 million. Holocaust, 10 to 15. World War II here. So you see, so I just want to point this out because A lot of people die under Mao. He is a bad dude. These policies are unsuccessful. And by not just these policies, but coming back here, he's eliminating his opponents. He's killing anybody who speaks out against him. And this whole legacy of Mao, who's in power from 1949 until 1978, 79, so 30 years, it does not work. So it's a huge bust. So the theme here is Mao, not good, doesn't do a good job, eliminates his opponents. That's what I got. Pretty short, right? We'll get into more in the next video of what happens after Mao dies and how China changes their economy and blah, 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 blah. That's what I got. I'm out.